We are here coming to you live.
The Kansas City Chiefs are going to the Super Bowl. You only win a Super Bowl 2 times every 5 years, right? Oh!
The warm-up act is over. Let's bring in Melissa Etheridge, massive Chiefs fan. Melissa.
Super Bowl champion, 2-time Pro Bowler, and Trent Green. Trent Green, how you doing?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Oh, he picked it up! He picked it up! He's gonna score!
And we'll see you next week. But until then, as always, go Chiefs.
Welcome to the Arrowhead Addict pregame show as the Chiefs face off against the Eagles. A Super Bowl rematch, and one that kind of is trending towards a Super Bowl rematch. I should have said last Super Bowl up to the rematch here, but I'm joined by Mike. Mike, how are you?
I'm doing okay. I'm finally excited to get a good Monday night game after a bunch of weeks of unwatchable pap in a row. It looks like we finally got something that'll actually not make the viewers want to turn off the game at halftime, which I'm thrilled for.
Yeah, normally I have to drink Arrowhead Lager to get through the games, but tonight game, this is an enhancer. So I cannot wait. A couple things I want to get to and hit on first. I want to hit on the inactive list. The Chiefs' inactive players tonight: offensive lineman Mike Caliendo, Malik Herring, BJ Thompson, Richie James, Neil Farrell, Matt Connor, and myself. We breathe a upsetting sigh. For me, no Richie James. For Matt Connor, no Neil Farrell. But this is an absolutely massive game. And on the Eagles side of things, they are without Tanner McKee, Rashad Penny, Moro Ojamo, Sua Opeto. Dallas Goedert is still out with that forearm, and then Derek Barnett. But again, the Eagles have enough defensive line weapons to make this work even without Derek Barnett. Mike, I want to start here. I want to start with A.J. Brown for the Philadelphia Eagles because the Chiefs have been so good at stopping every single wide receiver one, right? They held Tyreek Hill to his worst output all season long. They locked up Jalen Waddle on the opposite side. Before Justin Jefferson went down with injury, he couldn't get open. He was locked. But the one receiver the one type of receiver that can give the Chiefs issues are the physical type. And that is A.J. Brown, right? Now, this is obviously different from in previous seasons, but what have been the guys that have always given the Chiefs issues? It's Mike Williams, right? It's T. Higgins. It's Jamar Chase. Now, Jamar Chase is not this massive size, but he's very thick and he's very physical. How do you think the Chiefs try and slow down the physicality of A.J. Brown?
Well, the problem with A.J. Brown, too, is it's one thing to be a big receiver. It's another to be a top 1% of 1% athlete while being that big like A.J. Brown was. I mean, people forget he got drafted very high in baseball by the Padres and almost went into baseball if he didn't end up having that great career at Ole Miss. Like, this is a freak of an athlete, and I don't care what he's listed at. It might be 220-something. There's no possible way he's under 230 pounds. His biceps are too gigantic for that to happen. And this is the problem he faced. I mean, Trent McDuffie is as good a second-year corner, maybe outside of like Sauce Gardner or like Tariq Woolen, as you're going to find in the league. So part of me just wants to go, all right, well, just stick McDuffie on as much as you can and hope for the best. That seems like a very prudent strategy that has worked often, but there's just something about A.J. Brown. I don't know if they're just going to have to just bracket him all the time. Well, you can't really just bracket him all the time because they got Devontae Smith, who's probably maybe outside of Jalen Waddle, the best number 2 receiver.
But Mike, I am not worried about Jalen Waddle. The Chiefs have shown me they can handle the slender body types. They can handle the slim reaper. That's why, in my opinion, they were best equipped to handle Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. I still think Tyreek Hill is the best wide receiver in football. I still do. But when I went into that game, I kept saying, I'm not worried about those guys. They'll have a decent output, but the Chiefs are the best equipped team in the NFL to handle those guys. But when it comes to these bigger bodied guys, that's where my worry creeps in just a little. A.J. Brown set an NFL record at 6 straight games with 125 yards receiving. He is the NFC Offensive Player of the Month. Again, I think L'Jarius Sneed, Mike, might be the better option here. A little bigger bodied corner. Trent McDuffie, I think you put him on Jalen Waddle. I mean, Devontae Smith, that to me makes a little bit more sense.
It might, but then eventually something's going to happen. Like, as much as they've contained guys like Tyreek and Justin Jefferson, I have a hard time believing with how much the Eagles just target A.J. Brown in their passing game, especially with Goddard out, because once Goddard went out, they really have tried to get some of the other tight ends involved. Like, he's going to have a big play. It's going to happen. As well as they play, it's going to happen. So because of that, when that first one happens, that big 40-yard chunk play to get into the red zone, how committed are they to Algerius Sneed? Are they going to go, you know what, tough play, but he'll figure it out. We trust our physical guy. Like, this is going to be, I think, really telling for Steve Spagnuolo, because Steve Spagnuolo is, in certain aspects, I think he's been kind of flexible in terms of how certain guys on individual weeks can get defended. But, I mean, it's all going to depend on how the first quarter. If the first quarter, if Sneed's getting toasted, I feel like they make a move. Because A.J. Brown has the potential to really wreck this game, because with how injured they are, I think Philly in some key areas, like with no Goddard, he's going to have an inordinate amount of targets. They're going to look for him. He might get 15 targets today.
And I will say this, for the Chiefs defense, they are giving up only 176 yards passing a game. That is fourth in the NFL. Opponents' yards per pass, 5.5, third in the NFL. What has been a huge boost for Kansas City this year is they're not giving up a ton of big plays, but that is where the Eagles thrive. Jalen Hurts, who does have that bone bruise, he struggled to start the season. But then what happened? As the season's gone on, he's reverted back to what he was last year, getting the ball deep to A.J. Brown and obviously Devontae Smith. But with this wet field, first off, if Eagles fans try and complain about the field again, I'm going to lose my shit. I've already finished one bottle of Eagles tears, okay? Fill it up. Give me another one. I am not going to deal with another field issue from Eagles fans. But with this wet field, who does this benefit? Does this benefit the Chiefs going up against Devontae and A.J. Brown, or does the physicality of A.J. Brown lend him to be better on a wet field?
Well, with the wet field, too, I feel like it just leans to physicality a little bit more. And I feel like there might be a little more – this is going to be a ground game, I think, type of game. Obviously, with Patrick Mahomes, you can never have a true just ground and pound offensive style, barring some calamitous natural disaster act of God thing where they're playing in a hurricane. Like, I remember Notre Dame, North Carolina State literally played in a hurricane one day. Outside of that, they're going to be chucking the ball. So this does sort of actually play into Philly's hands a little bit, is what I'm concerned of, because Philly, having seen them play this year, when they're rolling, they can be one of the most demoralizing teams to play against, because this is not a super complex offensive attack that they really lean on. They have a couple bread and butter plays. They got a tremendous offensive line. They got, I think, one of the best running backs in the league in DeAndre Swift. I think what an addition he's been. And every time you get into 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, you know what the hell's coming, and they just keep running it over and over and over again. It really can demoralize a defense, and that's, I think, how they've won as many games as they won with Jalen Hurts in there. I also think, too, with him playing clearly not at 100%. Like, he's going to tough it out. This guy is tougher than a $2 steak. He's played through a ton of injuries, but, I mean, with a bone bruise, like, he says it's not that bad, but it very clearly, I think at the end of the Dallas game, he was limping around a little bit. I think they're going to just try and let the running game and Swift kind of get them going, for lack of a better word, in this game.
Yeah, I mean, if you've never had a bone bruise, those things hurt, dude.
It doesn't sound like it hurts a lot. That thing will drive you nuts.
Well, it doesn't sound bad until you think about it. A bone bruise. Your bone is bruised. Shit hurts. Talking about running the football, again, as we were seeing in the chat right there, offensive line typically thrives. That's who you lean on in a rain-soaked game. Let's start with the Eagles' offense here. They actually run the ball at the 5th highest clip in the NFL with a rushing play 47% of the time, but they're not super effective, right? They're getting only 4 yards a clip, but the issue is they run the ball 32 times a game. 32 times a game. They run, and oh yeah, they will run some more. So the Chiefs have to be on the lookout here. The Chiefs defense and their defense, they've been okay stopping the run. Opponents' rush yards per game is 112.2 rushing yards per game against. The issue is they get 4.5 yards per rush, which is good for 29th in the NFL. little bit of an advantage for the Eagles. And then on the Eagles side of things, what do they do well? I'll talk about their horrendous, their porous, their abysmal secondary in just a moment. But the one thing they do well is stopping the run. Look at this right here. Philly's defense against the rush, first in the NFL. 66.3 yards per game. 66.3 yards per game. Let that sink in.
And we know why that happened because of the look. We don't want to relitigate it. We know why 100% why Jalen Carter fell to the Eagles. If I got to see how did the league let Jalen Carter fall, we know what happened, all the stuff around him. But purely football wise, watching him and Jordan Davis play, like it stinks because you're like they're probably just set at interior defensive line for like 10 years, and they were two teammates at Georgia, Carter and Davis. Those guys are just, and again, Kansas City, I think, is at least better equipped to handle most of them. Now, Davis is huge and Carter's really fast, but you know what? The Chiefs have this amazing interior offensive line that you could still compare them with anybody in the league. There might be one or two better. I like my chances with Kansas City. So if anybody's going to neutralize those two, Kansas City.
So we talked. I wanted to give a little shout out to the Eagles defense and their defensive line, as well as what they do against the run. They are the best in the NFL. Now let's talk about how the Chiefs can take advantage of this porous Eagles defense. Everyone keeps thinking, well, it's the same defense. They just got better because they added some pieces. Hold up. They have been banged up in the secondary. Not just banged up, they've gotten older. Darius Slay has been solid but unspectacular. He is also a year older. James Bradbury has seemingly fallen off a cliff. That seemingly is coming with age. Avonte Maddox has been placed on the IR, and the Eagles have tried everyone in that slot corner position, and quite frankly, it has not worked at all. I tweeted out earlier before this entire show that you and I are doing here, Mike, whoever's in the slot for Kansas City is going to feast. I don't care who it is. It could be Rashee Rice. It could be Sky Moore, which, yes, I even said Sky Moore. It could be Kadarius Toney.
That's a bold statement.
It doesn't matter because the Eagles' slot corner can't get it done. That's what it comes down to. You look at some of the numbers from the Eagles right here. They give up the 257 yards per game, which is 29th in the NFL. Their sack rate is only 12th in the NFL, which you'd think would be higher for a team that gets dropped back the most in the NFL. Teams do a pass play against the Eagles 71%. 71% of the time, they're passing against the Eagles because, one, the rush defense is great, and two, their pass defense is atrocious. And they're still not getting home a ton. What does that mean? Mahomes is a guy who does not get sacked. The interior offensive line will give him time. Juwan Taylor's been better in recent weeks. Oh, and by the way, you have a secondary of the Eagles that can't cover anyone. I get the weather is not ideal, but this leads me to believe the Chiefs can take advantage of a fatal flaw of this Eagles defense.
And you look at some of the quarterbacks they've played, like while they get pressure when they can get pressure, I mean, Mac Jones, 300 yards against them, Sam Howell twice, Kirk Cousins had 4 touchdowns. He almost had 5 because I remember Jefferson fumbled at the 1-yard line once. Like, they're vulnerable. And Kevin Byard will help, definitely. I think he's a very good safety, but it takes you can't just insert one player and wholesale fix things, because what the Eagles are also going through right now, and on offense a little bit too, is they had an offensive coordinator in Shane Steichen, who's now a coach with the Colts, and a defensive coordinator in Jonathan Gannon, who's now a coach for the Cardinals. So you lose both coordinators at once. Of course, it's going to take some time to kind of find your new identity, even with a lot of the same players, but they still haven't done it yet. So what does that mean? Well, this is going to be an 87 game. And I know that the object of his desire is not going to be in attendance today, and I know that is an inverse effect on his stats, but how many times over this year and beforehand have they been in a rut offensively, which last couple games they kind of had. They're not been Chiefs level, Mahomes level, and they just said, you know what, 87's out there somewhere, find him. This is the perfect game for 87 to do that, because Kelsey's going to probably get a ton of slot snaps. They're probably going to throw the ball early a lot, probably out of a little bit of intimidation out of that whole Davis-Carter tandem. And yeah, I think some receivers are going to do okay. I think Rice, is really going to start breaking out soon. I think that Rice is probably starting to emerge as maybe the de facto number 1 receiver after they've been trying to shoehorn God knows how many other inferior players in there. Like, they don't have a 1. They have like 7 wide receiver 3s on the team, so it's just not working. But this is just going to be a Kelsey game, much like how it's going to be a Brown game for the Eagles. Like, if he gets under 15 targets, I'm honestly going to be shocked.
Yeah, for me, I'm going Travis Kelce 100+ yards and a touchdown easy this game. I know it's kind of a cop-out answer saying who's going to be your MVP, and you say Travis Kelce, and you're sitting here going, okay, that's a cop-out. But it's true. If there's any game to pick Travis Kelce, it's it's against the Eagles, who have been porous again in the secondary, and especially two tight ends. They've been getting decimated. And again, that's why I think the slot's going to be effective, because if you do get pressure on Mahomes while he does not take sacks, he'll throw the ball out quick. It's going to be to a slot receiver. What's been an interesting progression as the years gone on, Rashee Rice started off playing a lot in the slot, which meant Sky Moore had to play on the outside. Well, as we know, Sky Moore cannot play on the outside, but Rashee Rice can play about anywhere. Rashee Rice, as the season's gone on, started to play a little bit more on the outside. But I trust Rashee Rice more than any other wide receiver, as you mentioned, in this game, for the Chiefs at least. What that means is I would like to see Rashee Rice actually not play as much outside and play more in the slot. I don't care if you get to play Sky on the outside. Use him as a decoy. It's not a good decoy, but still use him as a decoy, because Rashee Rice, to me, thrives when he's in the slot.
And for as good as Rice is, I mean, he's not a perfect player. He's had some drop issues. He's had some rookie moments. But, I mean, for this Chiefs receiving core, which for all the things that Brett Veach has done exceptionally well in terms of building a team and then adapting after building the core, like adapting after losing Tyreek and a bunch of other guys, some of his wide receivers, mostly drafting and who to really put his trust into with kind of lower tier free agent signings, they just haven't worked out. It's just been a complete like Island of Misfit Toys situation. You guys are smart fans. You don't need me to relitigate that, but I think Rice has at least progressed to a point now where if they give him some sort of limited role, or they're like, oh, we're still trying to work him up, I think that's doing an extreme disservice to him as a player, to Mahomes, to this offense. Like, he's a playmaker. He's not perfect. He wasn't perfect at SMU. I mean, that wasn't an NFL offense and an NFL route tree he was running, so he's still learning on the fly. I get it. But my God, on a team where nobody else is making plays, and the one guy who sometimes does Tony, he either drops every other pass or he gets hurt because he sneezed too hard. I mean, Rice seems like the one guy that you could actually rely on half the time.
I'm going to talk about the Chiefs defense for a little bit here. I mentioned the Eagles have ran the ball a ton this year, the third most in the NFL, 32 rushes per game. But again, they're only 21st in 4 yards per carry. But what happens if you do 4 yards, 4 yards, 4 yards? That is a first down. We've seen the Chiefs defense at time struggle to stop the run. Again, I mentioned they've been outstanding at stopping the pass, but stopping the run, they've had their issues. Again, no Nick Bolton. Nick Bolton not going to be back for a while still. You got Drew Tranquil, who has been actually better stopping the run than I expected, right? Because he's a little lighter for a linebacker. We knew he's been a great pickup, a great signing. He's been outstanding, but again, his one knock against him would be getting downhill and stopping the run. He's been better there.
Well, he was a safety in college too, so he's still like in the process of like he did kind of that Todd Bowlesy hybrid-y. They called him a money linebacker with the Chargers. Like he's still like learning how to be a full-time linebacker.
But then you couple him with Willie Gay Jr., who's had his best season ever, right? We've talked about potential. Well, he goes, all right, I'm in a contract year, time to step up, and he has. But then, to me, the best run-stopping linebacker outside of Nick Bolton is Leo Chenal. Now, Leo doesn't play a ton, and the Chiefs obviously don't run a base package a ton, right? They're not running a lot of 4-3. It's 3 safeties. It's 3 corners. They don't really do a ton of 4-3. So for me, what I'm coming down to is, where does Leo find snaps? Because to me, if a team runs the ball 32 times a game, you got to get your best run-stopping linebacker on the field. You're not going to take out Drew Tranquil because he is the green dot, right? You're not going to take out your play caller. But also, I don't want to take out Willie Gay Jr. Where do you find this? Where do you find the snaps, I should say, for Leo Chenal, if you even think he gets a boost up this game?
I mean, maybe it has to be more base, because I've always been a Leo Chenal fan. He's not going to be this good, but he reminded me a lot when he was coming out of Dante Hightower early in New England. And Dante Hightower, for my money, is maybe the most underrated player of the last 10 years. With how he just made that defense work, with him being able to flex at so many different positions. Like, legitimately, Chenal's that kind of athlete. He's that good in terms of, I mean, he's like 255. I mean, that guy can run. He hits hard, smart player, plays really hard. It's a good problem to have if you're only playing 2 linebackers and you got 3 or 4 that you really trust to. But Chenal is getting to the point now where I think Spagnuolo really has to not make wholesale changes because it's working well enough with the current alignment. But I just hate seeing a guy who's so clearly very talented like Chenal not get an opportunity, not because he's not playing well, though, just because there's so many other guys ahead of him. I loved him as a prospect so much. I want to see him do well.
Yeah, I still hope he has death row written in Sharpie on those biceps for tonight. When it comes down to the Chiefs' defensive line, how do they get after Jalen Hurts? How do they make an impact in this game? We always talk nonstop ad nauseum about the vaunted Eagles D-line. But the Chiefs' defensive line has been outstanding all season long. They are 5th in the NFL in sack percentage. And now they have, obviously, Charles Omenihu back in the fold. He's getting his feet wet, his legs underneath him. He's been a factor, not just getting after the quarterback, but knocking balls down. Chris Jones is, well, he's Chris Jones. Karlaftis has been really, really solid, right? 6 sacks, the motor. Mike Dana has 5.5. I mean, you're seeing even some unsung guys get after the QB as well for Kansas City. How do they get after Jalen Hurts?
Well, I think honestly, they definitely need to get some pressure on Hurts. But if you look at the game plan for taking down Hurts, a lot of the teams that have played well against him haven't necessarily just thrown the house at him. They've kind of let him sit back and kind of make these weird turnover-worthy throws that last year he wasn't making. Like if you look at, even though they won this game, if you look at Tampa Bay, where I don't think he played very well, he had 2 interceptions, and then the one game they lost this year, the Jets game. Like both of them have impact players up front, but they just played out of their mind on the back end in those games. And then Hurts, for as much as he is a get the ball out quick and then make plays sometimes with his legs kind of guy, like you could tell he's always looking for that deep shot. I mean, once or twice a game, there's always going to be A.J. Brown down the sideline where he just chucks it up. He's really good at that kind of throw. He gets kind of antsy if you just make him dink and dunk for really long, and he'll try some risky throw. And then teams like Tampa Bay and the Jets, they took advantage of that, forced him into some interceptions. So I don't want to just like go in with a defeatist attitude and say, well, the Eagles' offensive line's really good. We're not really going to get pressure on Hurts. But as good of a, because he can make so many plays with his legs and he can escape pressure because his legs are as big as my waist and he's impossible to tackle.
Yeah.
Like the key to this game is just make him dink and dunk, make sure AJ can't beat you over the top, and then eventually he's going to get a little nervous. He's like, I got to get some big play. I can't keep throwing 4-yard checkdowns, and then that's where you get him. I'm not saying I'm an NFL defensive coordinator and I cracked the code on Jalen Hurts, but that seems to be the most effective, the meta in terms of how to stop him right now.
I like this from Jimmy Trimble says, I like Willie Gay Jr. as a spy on Hurts. Yeah, I was actually about to ask. I was about to say Willie Gay Jr. is the perfect dude for a spy on Jalen Hurts, but also with that bone bruise, how mobile is he going to be? Are you going to have to? And again, how does that affect the brotherly shove? That is my
Monday night, though, he's hopped up on God knows what. They're injecting in him before this game to get him to play.
Again, but I'm with you, man. They have some magic they can these guys. But for me, it's that brotherly shove. You can't let the Eagles get into 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, 4th and 1, because they are going to pick it up. I have a really interesting statistic for you right here. The Eagles on 4th down, what percent of the time do you think they convert?
On 4th down this year?
Correct.
Well, it's got to be like in the 90s, right? Or close to it?
76.5%. They convert.
But that's 4th down entirely, not just 4th and 1.
4th down entirely, because obviously, you know, that's it's going to skew it one way. But my point remains, if they get to 4th down, over 3/4 of the time, they are going to pick it up. They are going to be aggressive in this game. And you cannot let them get to 4th and 1, 3rd and short, because they will pick it up. They are first in 3rd down conversion. They are first in 4th down conversion. So that, to me, is what it comes down to. I like what you're saying. You know, let them dink and dunk. Let them try and make a big play, and then you get Jalen Hurts to be too aggressive. But again, to me, I don't know how you stop them in that instance, right? Because they're so good in 3rd and short and 4th and short. The Chiefs have to have a big play. They don't cause a ton of turnovers, right? They don't force a ton of interceptions. You know, Trent McDuffie has forced 4 fumbles, and that's at a cornerback. Like, he's not out here trying to pick the ball off. He's peanut punching the ball. So you have to turn the Eagles over because they are so effective at bleeding the clock as well.
I mean, you look at the one game they lost, they turned the ball over 4 times and barely lost. So even if you turn them over 3-4 times a game, that's still not enough. And that's where the
Yeah, but against
demoralizing
who?
aspect
Against
comes
who, though? Mike, against who?
against Zach Wilson, which
Yeah, come on.
how the hell did that
That's
happen?
what I'm saying. Yeah, they barely beat with 4 turns. Yeah, it was against Zach Wilson and the Jets. That ain't gonna
Overtime to
happen
beat
against
Sam
Kansas
Howell,
City.
too. This is a bizarre team.
I guess that's the key for me. Is if you get him in 3rd and short, 4th and short, you got to at least stop him once. You got to stop him twice. You got to make a mistake because the Eagles will bleed the clock out, as I mentioned, by the 32 rushing times a game. They only get 4 yards a clip, but for them, that is them having ball control. You have to play smart. No stupid penalties. Offensively, Trey Smith. I love Trey Smith. Love Trey Smith. He's had a few penalties this year. Juwan Taylor's had a lot fewer penalties as the season's gone on. Donovan Smith, he is who he is, right? Donovan Smith is a fine left tackle. He's pretty solid in pass protection, but he gets flagged. Gets about 1 a game. You can't have a back-breaking penalty in this game. You can't have pre-snap penalties. Defensively, I know the Chiefs like to be physical, and actually to an extent, I'm okay with that, but especially against A.J. Brown, right? But against like a Devontae Smith, don't worry about it. Don't get a late penalty on him. Unless you are jamming him at the line of scrimmage, you can't get PI late. You can't. A game against the Eagles, when they are 8-1, they move the ball so effectively, they drain the clock. You have to be smart, and I think the Chiefs will be. Andy Reid, we know what he does coming off a bye. We know how good Andy is off a bye. And oh, by the way, against his former team, 4-0, including the Super Bowl.
I just have a hard time believing Andy Reid off a bye is going to be completely befuddled by this secondary. Like, for all the things that maybe Philly has an advantage just in a vacuum against the Chiefs, it's Patrick Mahomes with an extra week to prepare against a beat-up secondary. And you can't overstate how important that is.
Yeah. Oh, I love this comment. Angry Drunken German. This is phenomenal. These are also the 2 most obvious kick-starting tackles as well. We'll see if either team gets one of those annoying false start calls. Great call. If you call it against Lane or if you call it against Jawan, look on the other side. They're going to call against the other guy as well. If they don't, I'm going to be heated, okay? If they call it against Jawan and not against Lane, I will be drinking 37 of these bad boys.
Okay, that sounds unsafe.
Drink responsibly. I see Big Duke says Chip Reddick win the turnover battle and give the ball to Pacheco. Again, man, you just can't move the ball on the ground against the Eagles. Maybe I'm wrong, and Pacheco runs very viciously. He runs angrily. Maybe that is the secret sauce here. But again, to me, I think you move the ball effectively almost in between the hashes, right? Just with Travis Kelce, with your slot receiver, take advantage of that weak slot corner. Stay away from big game Slay, and then take advantage of the slot corner and even James Bradbury. Again, I like James Bradbury, but he's fallen off. I think age has finally caught up to him, and he has lost a step. I wonder if you want to try and get a mismatch with an MVS against him, a Justin Watson, have a guy run a streak. You know, a big game play from one of those 2 guys. That, to me, makes the most sense. Slapshop says, yep, keep them rotating. Chris says they seriously need to run the hurry-up play calling at the line, not give the Eagles an opportunity to rotate players in and out. And that is a very good point. Chris, outstanding point there. Again, the Eagles, what do? They have 8 defensive linemen. They love to rotate in and out. You can't let them get an opportunity. This would be a good time to run the hurry-up offense. And by the way, let me see some more 12 personnel. Get Noah Gray out in the field a little bit more. He can also be a factor in this one.
A lot of those things would require Matt Nagy not having the most bland, safe offense ever.
After a bye, Mike. Come on, it's after a bye.
It pains me. Patrick Mahomes has the 2nd highest percentage of throws short of the sticks in the league. Number 1 is Daniel Jones.
Oh.
Like, what are you doing, Matt Nagy? This is the game where you finally break that, I think. This is where Mahomes got to turn back the clock. Or Andy Reid just says, we're not doing that crap anymore. It didn't work with Mitch Trubisky, shocker. Stop trying to make Mahomes do it.
All right, before we go, turn of the game, get settled in on the couch in the man cave, crack him in a cold one, and watch the Chiefs kick some ass. What is your score prediction here, Mike?
I'm going to have to say, as I did on the Stack in the Box show earlier before this, I'm going to have to say 28-24 Chiefs win. Because A.J. Brown is A.J. Brown. He's going to have some big plays. There's no way he's not. I just have a hard time believing with this secondary and Patrick Mahomes, even if he's not playing like Patrick Mahomes right now, we've seen this before sometimes. He'll go through like 2-3 weeks where he's not really Mahomes and kind of goes off the reservation. Andy Reid's got to get him back under center. I think we're at that time right now. I have a hard time believing Mahomes is going to have another Broncos game.
Yeah.
So I have 28-24.
I have a slightly lower scoring game here. I have 23-20 Chiefs, win by a field goal. Again, the Chiefs defense to me is elite. I think they handle business. I do think A.J. Brown gets his. It's what A.J. Brown does. I do think the physicality of him lends himself well to this game. But again, I think they lock down everyone else on the Eagles. I think they do a good job containing DeAndre Swift, especially as a pass catcher. And I think they were able to get after Jalen Hurts at least a few times in this one. Again, I don't know if Pacheco gets going in this game, but I think Mahomes does. I think Mahomes to Kelsey to the slot. That's what I'm looking for. Chiefs 23-20, and I can't wait. I can't wait. Another one of these Eagles tiers is going to be filled up after they complain about the rainy conditions in this one. Because it's going to be weird, right? It's only going to rain when it affects the Eagles and not Kansas City. Everyone, thank you guys so much for being here. Mike Luciano, make sure you follow him on Twitter at @ByMikeLuciano. He works here with FanSided, with Stacking the Box and myself, as well as for the Jet Press. I will be back here at halftime. Hopefully, it'll be a Chiefs lead at that point. Until then, we are out.